Hey, I'm here to talk about creativity. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, so I'm not going to have any science to back this up. And I guess it's not really a conversation that calls for scientificness or, scientific input. But yeah, I'm just going to talk about how I do things and I guess my year overall for creativity. I started getting really into short stories. Uh, the plan next year, I guess, would be collect like I don't know, a bunch of short stories together and release like an anthology or something, like a book of short stories, right? These anthologies exist. I like writing short stories. It's my favorite medium to write because you don't have to dedicate too much time to the characters and to writing, and you can kind of just eyeball it, create your own world, or create a world within a world, which is what I often choose to do. But Upon Cobbled Streets exists. It's kind of like a novelette, novella. It's like 20,000 words or something, and I mean that longer piece may be emulated in the future, but it'll definitely be some project for when I have more time, right? So yeah, I started doing that. So I guess I'm gonna talk about my input-output method, right? Sorry, I just remembered to do my Duolingo lesson in Italian today. Um, that's for a different video. Yeah, I'm gonna do like a 400 Italian, like a 400-day Italian thing on Duolingo and see how it goes. I'm gradually progressing through the lessons and whatnot. But yeah, and then I'll try to do an entire video in Italian, kind of like I did with the Spanish one, but see where it goes because I have a pretty good background in Italian already. Like I've been studying it for a while, and obviously not through formal lessons, so it'll be really wonky, but kind of like German, I guess. But yeah, so going to input and output, there's kind of like a balance, right? I do sometimes where I do a lot of taking in and retention versus trying to put stuff out. And like it exercises various like muscles in your brain, not like muscles as in, but metaphorical muscles. It exercises different parts of your brain. And yeah, so there are times where I do a lot of taking in with information, like various topics, I guess, and various things I want to work on, and I don't try to output or I don't try to adapt. I just take it in and try to retain. Like I do, like sciences are it's especially important to take this, like the actual retention part, and keep that. Like I don't think it's easy to understand a lot of nuanced scientific topics. Like I was looking at the cosmological, um, what's the word? Cosmological horizon, right? The cosmological. Oh, there's a cosmological constant, but that's not what I'm thinking of. But yeah, like the metaphorical edge of the universe where observability gets really mucked, right? And like those sort of things, I'm not like a physics professor or anything, and I don't really have a strong background, but I was reading some dissertations on it, and like you have to understand the course material, right? And it's really hard to do, especially if you're making your own calculations, which when I'm reading, all of that stuff's in front of me, so I don't have to do that, thank God, right? But yeah, I need to take a lot of these things in and retain them, and that's really hard to do. And like with music and language and coding and whatnot, like I really enjoy practicing these things, and I wish there were, I don't know, some way for me to do both effectively, but I only have so much elasticity with my brain. That's why taking French and Spanish in the semester, even though they're related languages, has been really difficult for me because I'm trying to balance learning both, and there are drawbacks to learning two similar languages at the same time, right? But yeah, there's only so much elasticity. So there are points where I take breaks doing whatever, and I can't tend to everything at the same time. Like coding gets left to the wayside a lot. Like I don't practice it as much as I should because I don't really need to. But yeah, it's very interesting to me. But in the same realm, it's like I said, I only have so much elasticity. So yeah, the way I do things, I'll use writing short stories as an example, where it's like I'll see something that piques my interest, right? And this isn't reading other short stories, although me reading other short stories kind of inspired me to start writing my own. But yeah, I'll read about something I like, or I'll watch a movie and I'll be like, oh, I kind of like this concept. Like with Interstellar, I like the Earth is running out of food, and humanity's at the grace of desolation, right? And I like that sort of Apollyon. I like that apocalyptic theme, and so I'll write about that. But there are periods when I don't write, like during the semester a lot, where I'm just taking in information. I need to retain that, right? And I don't like the feeling of slipping, but I don't remember everything. Like especially with things like medicine and toxicology, it's really hard to remember a lot of things. That's why I don't I focus on diseases and how diseases interact with each other when it comes to like medical science and whatnot, right? And it's totally a hobbyist thing. Like I love hot like I like digging into things, but in the same realm, like I don't need to devote myself too heavily. And that's a great thing for me because, there are things like muscles and nerves and bones that I don't know the name of, but you know, I'm focusing on diseases and toxicology, so how different chemicals, different agents within the body interact, like how your cells combat disease, viruses, bacteria, anything. So I'm looking at those types of interactions, and I'm looking a lot at the cellular biology of things. And I don't know, there's probably a lot I'm missing because I'm not being formally educated on the stuff, right? Like, I don't really know how mitosis works. Like, I know what causes mitosis to happen, but I don't know the real, cellular nitty gritty. Like, I don't know how helicase polymerase, oh, wait, I gotta think of this. Hold on. I don't know how helicase ligase, it's not polymerase. There's, helicase ligase, primase, and then I'm forgetting one. I'm forgetting one really important one. But yeah, and then there's terminase and shit like that, all these enzymes involved with cellular replication, and then meiosis is also a very very rich, very deep topic to be explored, and you can only know so much, right? So by educating myself, I do lose a lot, but I'm also at the complete mercy of what I choose to learn and what I choose to reiterate myself. I I've read the book The Jungle by Upton Sinclair a lot, but I don't remember everything. Simple things escape me, like Jurgis's last name. I can't remember it right now, but yeah, there's Jurgis Maria. There's a bunch of background characters. I know he's Latvian. Yeah, he's Latvian, and or I think he's Latvian. I'm pretty sure he's Latvian. But yeah, I've read The Jungle how many times, right? I read Great Expectations a while ago, and I don't remember what's her name, Stella. Okay, so I remember the name of Stella, right? But there are a lot of things in that book I don't remember, right? So it's a lot of things are iterative processes, and I mean, I don't know. It's just you need to have the intake and you need to have the retention, right? I mean, I have a lot of books that I read, right? Like a lot of nonfiction books that I read, and I just need to iterate. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's my input-output process, and like I said, they exercise various parts of your brain. Making sure you have a study flow in, and make sure it's healthy, because if you overload, you're going to expel a lot of really crucial information. Like, I know when I'm taking in a lot of information, it's hard for me to articulate myself. Now, right now, I'm exercising my public speaking muscle, so everything's here. All those sentences, all the collocation will come to me more naturally because I'm just speaking, right? Collocation, second definition, when you look the word up, it's like the art of crafting sentences, but it's also something to do with juxtaposition. You know, it's feature grammar, it's a feature of linguistics, it's one of those things. But yeah, earlier in the video, I haven't made a video like this in a while, so I hadn't been flexing that, right? I've tried to make videos like this recently, and I just ended up talking about stuff I didn't really know how to talk about. I figure a lot of topics I wish to speak about um, are better left to people that are better at speaking about things. Not that I don't have a right to speak about these things, but I don't know. You owe people that watch your content a certain level of quality. And I've kind of felt that way with my music and shit recently too, where it's I owe the people that listen to this, and I owe myself, with the amount of experience I have, I owe myself a level of quality. Same goes with my writing. Like, I like writing, but look at Underground, for example, where the ending is really anticlimactic, right? I wanted to write another city, or I wanted to write another story that took place in London that was more fleshed out, had more love, and you know, that's great. You need to do those things, and it can't all be done in one set time. You get exhausted, and that's where consistency comes really important. That's why, like, I want to work on having the consistency, and what I mean by consistency is not so much wrapped in quality, but in consistency and tone, feel, emotion. Of course, these things are going to vary day by day, but establishing a consistency in these things over a period of time gives you that allotted leeway to not only revise and put the best foot forward, but it also leads to a higher quality. And I have extreme difficulty, maintaining tone because I have ideas. I have a lot of ideas, right? And I'm working on a lot of shit at the same time, right? So while I'm making this video right now, right, I went and did my Italian Duolingo. I'm thinking about Italian, my subconscious is wrapped in that Italian vocabulary, and then there's subsects of that. It's not how do I want to, it's kind of like particulate, right? A topic is particulate, it's molecular, right? A topic is comprised of the molecules of what makes that topic. So grammar, syntax, all that shit makes a language, right? Music, notes, timing, the history of music, why we use the modal scales, the 12-tone equal temperament. These are all molecules that make the whole vessel of music as a genre, right? So I have all of these things coursing through my head at the same time, and when I speak, I think about the words I use, and when I make speech errors, it's, I'm picking incorrect words from the pool that I'm trying to use. So it's a really hard thing to do, to collocate and to piece words together, to piece ideas together, and to put everything you want to do together. That's why creation itself is extremely difficult, because you know what you want to do. Like when I'm, sat down and I was like, I want to make a video about, the whole creative process, right? I knew what I wanted to talk about, but I didn't know, how it was going to come out because I hadn't yet done that. Like theory versus application. And I very am richly versed, I'm strongly versed on the theory of several things. Like on an academic level, I'm very comfortable and familiar with topics like language is a great example where, I have YouTube videos talking about things that are objectively true about languages. Like I can talk about phonology, morphology, I can talk about pragmatics, semantics, orthographics, even though orthographics are, that's kind of like an anthropology thing, and logographs, shit like that. Logocentrism, phonocentrism, like I can talk in depth about these things, but, it's like, si yo quiero hacer un video en español, necesito hablar con gramático correcto. See, I'm lost, right? Because it's theory versus application, right? And I mean, music's the same way. And that's where I've had a lot of difficulty writing sheet music recently, because it's like I know what I want to do. It's a very arduous process then. And once I have free time, like after the semester, I'm going to sit down, and instead of making a bunch of little pieces, I'm going to make one big piece that I'm proud of. Make it like, I don't know, 10 minutes long, and I'm not going to try to force it to be anything it isn't. I'm going to make this slow piece. I'm going to use, my conventions with writing music, because everyone has their own conventions and approaches to, the process of making music. But, I mean, I get really self-conscious, like, oh, is this too slow? Is this too simple? It's like, I don't care. And after the semester, during the break, I'm going to work on writing another double album, because I've wanted to do that for a while. I just haven't had the time, right? So, eventually I'm going to have a job where I'm enveloped, flexing the muscles of the brain I want to use, because, doing what I do now, I don't really do that, right? It's not really, it's not really an environment conducive of anything that concerns me, anything I really care about, right? I need to do it, but I don't feel an obligation to quality. I feel obligation to quality because, I mean, that's the way of labor and commerce, is you're contracted to do something, right? You're hired. You're contracted to do something. You owe a certain amount of quality, but going above that, that's not really what I do. I'm willing to do something for something I have ardor for, but, until then, it's like I'm in a very gray zone. But with that, I mean, I will most certainly be involved in, the things I like to do now. Eventually, in the future, I would like to create a compendium of my, my creations in general, and I would like to create a website from scratch, I have Google Sites now as a hosting platform. I did a lot of the coding myself, right? I did a lot, like I pieced a lot of that together. It's very carefully put together, but there are things I cannot do on Google Sites that I wish I could do. And right, so I'll, save up some time off. I'll take, I don't know, however much time I can get away with off of work in the future, and I will start this project, right? And that's how it's going to be for the future. Like, I will be able to work on the things I do, and I just need to make sure I have resources. Remembering the things you care about is so important, right? This isn't like a motivational video or whatever, but, it's integral. And, like, I see a lot of these people online. Who was I watching? Alista Vega is a perfect example of someone who is really dedicated to what she does, and she's really good at what she does, but she's locked in. You can't study for a German C1 exam, or wait, you can't study for a German C1 exam without knowing what you're doing, right? Like, that's a level that I'm not particularly concerned to reach in my life. I don't foresee myself ever being C1 in German. My thing with other languages is I love and I'm extremely dedicated to the English language, and I will continue to use the English language as my main form of communication, but my feet in the other languages and other language families is mostly out of a love for culture, a love for people, a love for culture, and a love for, the world around me and how the world works. But also a love for ameliorating my vocab, my lexicon, right? It's not a simple process. My English is greatly affected by the other languages I'm you know well versed in. Like French has my enrichment of the French language over the past couple months it's really really changed how I speak English, and German has done that to me too, right? German not so much in like casual speech like now, but in my writing, my word order, yeah, I think anastrophe is seen as a really negative thing, but I think you can create some really clear syntax properties. Like you can create really interesting, unique, and individualistic writing if you use proper grammatically correct anastrophe. So you need to make sure you're right, but you can also make your writing very true to you. And for me, anastrophe isn't really anastrophe because that sort of writing comes naturally to me because of my exposition to German and my knowledge of the history of the English language. But I mean, it makes my writing belong to me, right? And yeah, so her she's said that a lot of her language, a lot of her exposition to other languages has made her English weird. And I think Alista Vega is she. I don't. How do I want to say this? Because it's not like an insult. She's like a modernist when it comes to linguistics. She talks to people, and communication is her drive. For me, it's a very much a literature thing. Like she intakes a lot of literature, but she also intakes a lot of casual conversation dialogue, whereas I intake very little dialogue, right? And that's what makes speaking for me so hard. And like she's a very diligent language learner. I have so much respect. Like I've been watching her videos, um, but I mean she's one of those people that has the pitfall where she's trying to sell you something. And I hate the term polyglot. I don't like the term polyglot because I don't know. It's a very corporatized word, and it's a very corporatized way of thinking about language. And I don't think that's what your goal should be, right? But nonetheless, that's how people are going to behave with anything, right? They're going to corporatize it, and she's trying to sell you something. That's fine, and she's good at it. So I totally understand that. I would never want to market that. Of course, I'll be doing language for money sometime, but I don't know. I have a lot of qualms with this whole creating guidebooks for learning languages and shit because it's really not a simple process, and I think it's really disingenuous to make a business model out of it. But I that doesn't that does not go to speak of the quality of her language learning ability or anything. But yeah, she's like I said, she's a language modernist. I expose myself to a lot of forms of languages, a lot of dialects. I expose myself to a lot of, I expose myself to a lot of texts and things. So things are very different. Like my vocabulary, I think, is very rich in a lot of languages, but in the same realm, that hampers my speech. And I'm very spread thin, and she just seems to have a talent for it. I don't, I don't have that. And that's fine. That's totally fine. She's incredible at what she does, and you see that with musicians too. It's like people that pick up anything and they become like savantish. It's really cool if you don't let the side of you that's like, oh, I wish I could be like that. If you don't let that inhibit you. But yeah, like I see that with a lot of musicians. Like I have a cousin. I don't yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to name him, but he's a phenomenal piano player, and he can just do it. And his ear is phenomenal. Like his ear for progressions, everything, it's phenomenal. It's so cool to me, and like it's just he's very diligent. So diligence is key. But yeah, like I was saying, remembering the things you care about is really important because if you don't, you let it slip. And it's okay to let things slip, right? Like, I have a lot of things I want to sharpen up on because they escape me over time, right? And my brain shifts what it thinks about based on my environment and what I'm exposing myself to. Like, when I get into like historical shit, like human history shit, I'm thinking about warfare. I'm thinking about colonization. I'm thinking about you know who was the head of this house in this government at what time, like who was the main governing family, what were the treaties signed at this time, and then of course all the other shit is pushed wayside. It's like if I go pick up my guitar right now, I could probably play the Greek scales after some fucking them up for a while. When I'm really locked in with the whole like playing guitar and everything, I do it off rip. Like I don't even need to think about it. But it needs iteration. So it's like, and I get really worried. I lose my edge. It's a big point of anxiety for me when I forget something. I've gotten really good with it over words, like being okay, like, oh, I don't remember the word for this, I'll just look this up. But customs are a big one where it's like I really have a hard time remembering like foreign customs and American customs. So like a lot of cultural shit is lost on me, even in America. Like I don't there are a lot of things I just don't understand about America, and I've lived here my whole life, right? Like there are things that Americans do that I don't understand, and there are for me recently like I don't understand why Americans think and act the way they do. Not because there's anything wrong with it, but and not because it's different to Europe. It's just like because I don't understand people, right? That's really hard for me to like grip with, where it's like people become overly worried about what people like think of them in America. Like they get really concerned over social optics, and this happens in other countries too. I know it happens in the United Kingdom at least, where teenagers and adults are really concerned with how people perceive them, and that just doesn't make sense. But it's definitely with consumerism and the like hyper capitalism in the United States, everyone has something of status. Like your vehicle, if I drove a Volkswagen buggy, like a Beetle, not a buggy, a Beetle to work, and it's beat to shit and it's rubbish, like people are going to like judge me for that. And a lot of people, they just they let that eat them, and I don't get that, right? For a while I was really self-conscious about my writing, where it's like, well, people think this is anything of substance worth reading. And then I like got thinking about it more. It's like, no, it's not something worth reading, because there's so much shit out there that is of substantial quality that doesn't get read anyways. Why this? That's where connections are important. You need to be able to talk to someone and be like, hey, I want you to intake my like output. I want you to like be the judge of whatever. And that's what university's also really good for, because you do a lot of this writing. And yeah, for some months my writing was like, I was so concerned with like grammar, syntax, and vocabulary, which were all really strong points in my writing, that like I lost track of ideas. Like I had a thesis. I had a thesis that was like really well defended on paper, but it was so lifeless. Like adhering to ideas and generating ideas, showing volition is important, right? and that's really hard for me to do. So yeah, I got really self conscious about how I speak. I got really self conscious about it's not an accent. Well, I would it be an accent? I got really self conscious about my inflection and my pronunciation of words, and then like to me, English language is really supple, right? It's my sandbox language, so I became very unconcerned with that after time, and now I'm okay, like with my pronunciation and everything, and just understanding that I don't need to explain to everybody that my English is a chimerization, like a chimera of all the English dialects and vocabulary from other languages, and it doesn't need to be a bad thing because like that sort of vernacular individuation gives you a unique perspective, and everyone has it, right? The movies you watch, the video game characters you admire, the books you read, those things are going to affect how you speak, or affect how you speak. Those things are going to affect how you project your own language, right? Like when I'm at work, I call people captain because of Star Trek. Like that makes no sense. It's completely illogical. We don't have a hierarchy in that sort of realm, but people understand what I mean, and it separates how I speak from how other people speak. Maybe not for the better, maybe not for the worse, maybe it's just a neutral thing, but in the same realm, it's like that's me, right? And look at what gets popular and what people say, like how people adapt their language to trends. It's like some of that shit sticks, right? And that's how we have slang and everything, but that's a unique feature of online English, and that's something only however many people will get, right? So like in my head, I have the idealized how I want to write, how I want to produce, and then my limitations. I would love to make these progressive 30-minute long songs, with key changes and a bunch of instruments and shit. But I'm one person, I'm limited by my own creativity, right? Where it's like if you listen to a lot of my long songs, they're very monotonous. So it's up to me to add flavor to that. And like I don't mean monotonous as in it's like the same the whole time, but they're very there's not like key switches. It's not like Bohemian Rhapsody, it's more like Duck Koo Kim, right? And so there's that, and then I'm limited by other things. Like I don't want to record for 30 minutes. Are you fucking crazy? My hands would go crazy. Like my hands would fall off. And I mean, I've had that problem in the past where it's like I want to play a progression for longer, and I really like a progression, and I really want to, I really want to master how I play it. But in the same realm, like my hands will get tired, right? That's why I use a lot of the shapes I do, because they're so comfortable for me, and I've just gotten used to them. So I'm really limited there. In my head, I also have, like the idealized English language for me. The idealized English language for me is like a bunch of words that we use in, like sequence with each other, like um all the more it would be one word, right? So I would create a bunch of portmanteaus. I would create a lot of like abbreviated sayings. I would remove contractions. I would remove the possessive apostrophe. It's ideal to me because I have a very neat and structured like view of language, right? And like my idealized language is really it's really hard to get behind and explain, because I mean they're very simple concepts, but I don't know, they're not like ordinary topics of conversation. So it's like, for me, the way I speak English is I like to not put prepositions at the end of sentences. I like to avoid using contractions, even though I do. Like, I speak with contractions because I'm so used to it. But, I mean, in the same realm, I like to speak with a non-streamlined speech pattern. Like, I like to have a diverse vocabulary. I like to have a diverse way of expressing myself. I like to have a diverse way of, communicating complex ideas. And I like to speak rhythmically. That way it's easy to follow, right? I feel like I feel like there's something cerebral there where it's like consonants and assonants can make a sentence easier to follow. Like, yeah, alliteration can make a sentence easy to follow because you already have the logocentrism makes these words easy to follow. Like, if I create a complex and common pattern of pensive, I don't know, I don't know a P sound, but right, like, you can map these words out in your head and it's easier to understand. In my idealized language, I don't know if this is actually true or not, but if you look at a lot of my writing, like, you see these things reflected, right? And yeah, so everyone's ideal English language is, or everyone's idealized language is different. Some people put a premium on brevity and they speak with very short, quick, concise sentences, succinct sentences, and I mean, that works as well, right? So, I mean, yeah, language is really subjective in that way, but with the intake and the processing of information, it's like you need to you need to give yourself incentive, right? And you need to train yourself on importance. You need to create a hierarchy of intellectual stimulation where it's like, if you want to remember something, you need to make it important to you and you need to have a reason why it's important to you. Like, for me, all of the stuff that I'll never use, so things about like aeroplanes, for example, right? Like, I'll never be a pilot and I'll never fly a plane and I'll never probably encounter a lot of the planes I really admire. Well, a lot of them are American and I've seen them in person on the USS Yorktown CP-10. But like, how I remember a lot of that is, for me, it's a really simple answer. It's like, I really care. Like, I think it's important that someone should remember these things, and it brings me joy to see, the evolution of these things. Like, it's a really simple concept, and like, I'm sitting here thinking right now, it's like, I want to create a more important reason for the video, but in the same realm, it's like, I don't really need to. Like, it's important to me. Is that if that's not enough for someone watching this, it's like, well, I don't know you, so I don't care, right? So yeah, like, for me, it's just, I care about these things, but why do I care about these things? Well, I mean, there's a long-seated history between me and these things, and it's one of the things I've chosen. Why do I care about, diseases and shit? It's because I like knowing how the world works, right? I like knowing how the world works on a larger scale and on a smaller scale. I like knowing how the stratosphere is composed. I like knowing how the troposphere is composed. I like knowing how, the inner workings of the Earth handle themselves. Like, I like knowing that the core of the Earth is nickel and iron, I think, and, it's spinning, it's very much alive. I think these things are interesting to me because they have a direct, impact on me, but I also have a lot of sentiments revolving, life and, the absence of life on a lot of planets. Like, the solar system, I talked about this on Southwark, one of my one of my longer short stories, which I want to get in the habit of writing more frequently. But I think a solar system that does not have, biotic life is still very much alive, in that, those solar objects are still very much, doing their thing. And, each of these celestial objects have their own unique qualities that make them identifiable, that make them, whatever. If they're not capable of bearing life, then, I mean, that's, I guess it's kind of a letdown for people that want to find a home in the future, because there is some inevitability in the end of whatever. But, like, in the same realm, life could not have tainted this planet, and it is pure in its expression, right? Look at Mars. Mars is a beautiful example where they didn't have a species like humans to desecrate the face of their planet. The scars of humanity will be on the earth forever, or damn near forever, right? I think it would be, if we still see, like, what is it, stromatolites? I think, are there stromatolites from the cryogenium period, where there were a bunch of like bacterial colonies in the ocean creating oxygen, creating the first like global cooling event? Is that a thing? Like, are there stromatolites from that period, or does it have its own separate name? Whatever the case might be, if we know that shit happened, and we know a bunch of stuff, like, if we know that there were sand dollar they're not sand dollars, the Dickinsonia, the ones that were found in, no, it's Cooksonia, that was found in the Cook's Forest, I think, but, yeah, if we have the Dickinsonian, or the Dickinsonia, and we know it was an animal because we found cholesterol using, was it protein, they analyzed it for protein, or like lipid or nucleic acid, or something like that. If we can find evidence of that, the evidence of humanity will be ripe for a long, long time. So, yeah, I mean, Mars doesn't have that. Kepler 20, is it Kepler 20b, or is it Kepler 20j? Or is it, I know there's like another Kepler system, I think it's like Kepler 22 or something. I think it's Kepler 20b that is like, has something for life, but, these planets, they don't have their humans, right? They're not defaced, right? So yeah, where the fuck am I going with this? Yeah, so I have a very staunch input-output model. I think, I'm kind of in a point where I'm kind of relaxing back into things. Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. I recorded an album called Off Scour that I just finished. I'm gonna upload my new albums eventually. Cainozoic isn't going on anything. Neither will an album. I don't know. I'm not gonna make any positive assertions in that realm, but yeah, I guess for me the big dealio is that the world around us has very strange mechanisms, and things on this planet are very unique, in this solar system at least. And I aim to understand it, and I aim to understand the cosmos, and I aim to understand our broader concepts of things like time and life. Like, those things mean a lot to me, and the like machinations of life through, vocabulary, or like, how organisms express themselves, and the composition of organisms, like non-carbon based life that could exist out there somewhere, or, the possibility of radiosynthesis in mushrooms, right? Like, these things are extremely interesting to me, and they may aid us in the future, right? Like, look at this. If we change our main, energy source to nuclear energy, we're going to have a lot of nuclear waste. If we can use mushrooms to, you know, take this radiation and create energy with it, and then, it could be an infinite recycle, right? Maybe not a literal infinite recycle, but it would be a sort of um, dyadic function, right? I think that did I use that word right? It would be a sort of mutualism, right? That would be a better word. Where there is benefit all across the board, and we can figure out what to do. So, yeah, these sorts of understandings will help us in the future, right? And that's where I grow extremely wary of the future, where people are really based in artificial intelligence. People are writing fucking YouTube videos with artificial intelligence, and we don't actually have a real understanding of things. Like, I feel like now younger generations, quote unquote experts, aren't really experts on anything. They just have degrees. Like, they have really strong understandings of things, but being an expert on something is more than that. You have nuance, of course, but you also like have to have that information, right? You cannot be Starks in information. Like, if I was like a professor of the English language and I did not have a solid understanding of the grammatical functions of the English language, or the lexicon, or the origins of the words we use, like, could I really call myself an expert even if I had a doctorate? Like, I wouldn't think so. So, I don't know. I don't aim to be a genius, but like eventually I'm going to have to like choose something I really want to be good at. And for me, like, the obvious answer is I want to be really good at grammar. Like, I really value grammar. I really value like I said, collocation. I really value having a strong vocabulary to base how you form sentences. I really value having words for things that you don't have to explain further. I really like the intricacy of the English language, right? And I guess anybody, like, anybody that intakes this sort of stuff, like, you're going to have to specialize at some point if you want to contribute. And my ultimate goal for humanity would be like this peace. We abolish money, we abolish, all these things that hold us back. Like, the fiscal aspect of capital holds us back so much. And like, labor, in my opinion, labor is a type of capital because labor adds value. And someone's time is, they say time is money, but we in the anglophone world we say, time well spent, money well spent, right? There's these parallels, right? So if we're looking at labor as a type of commerce here, something to be traded, like, the fiscal portion of our capital is really weighing us down. And so for the future, I would really like to see that, be morphed, or see it more globalized, because I think the individual currencies are really driving a wedge between us and a more globalized market, I guess. And I have varying opinions on capitalism, communism, socialism, and all those things. Like, I have varying opinions, and I have, various outlooks and perspectives, but, like, I think globalization is good. I think the way I see it, right, I'm happy nations exist so communities of people have representation, and they are allowed to, like look at the Middle East. Like, the Middle East is very collectivist in that there's like pan-Arabism, and there's the Arab identity, and they're united through Islam in many cases, and they should be absolutely allowed to do that. What I don't like is when people, like, I'm very separate from a Muslim, and like any superficial conflict between me and a Muslim is perpetuated. Like, I don't like that, right? I like globalism. I want to cooperate with people. Part of the reason I love language is because I like cooperating with people, even if I can't do it on a deep sophisticated level. There is still a welcoming, a mutual understanding and welcoming that is present when I greet these people in their language or whatever, right? There is that mutual understanding, right? I spend hours looking at dictionaries online in several languages. I read a lot of Wikipedia articles in several languages, so I am immersed, and I want to see people cooperate. And I like that about the global market, or the theoretical global market, is there is that cooperation. But yeah, I think the fiscality of it all really holds us back. So, anybody, if you're looking, not even just through like college education, like find something you're good at and perpetuate it. Learn to love it. And abolish the hierarchies that exist in, be someone worth being, right? And that's your own definition to fulfill. Never be complacent in unhappiness, right? Like that's my thing for like suicidality is I was really depressed for several years, and it's like now I have drive because I found something I want to be good at, and even if I'm an expert, I'll never be perfect, so I'll need to sharpen that. And on top of that, I'll still have everything, right? And I can work on those things until the day I die, right? And if I get perfect at all those things, I'll have something else to do, right? Like if I remember everything about the Stenian period, then whatever, I can move on to the Tonian period, or I can move on to the seismic activity of the Carboniferous period, right? Or why oxygen was so abundant in the atmosphere, right? And if I do all that geology shit, then I can learn about cars, right? I can start fresh, right? I can learn the difference between 2.4 liter and 3.4 liter. I don't know if that's an actual thing. I don't know anything about cars except for like Camaros, right? But yeah, give yourself drive, like something you care about. There's an abundance of information. The internet is an encyclopedia. There's a lot of misinformation out there, but read dissertations about shit, right? If you're really into music, and not like music theory or anything, but if you're really into like popular music, like I said, there is so much abundance of everything. You can read about the history of it. You can read about popular groups. You can memorize, who's at the top of the charts. You can be like, ABBA, yeah, the Swedish pop group. They won the first Eurovision contest, and they have a bunch of popular songs. Their most popular song is Dancing Queen. Dancing Queen. I think that's the most popular ABBA song. It's a good song. I'm not like a big ABBA guy, but I don't know why I use them as an example. Jag älskar Sverige. But yeah, so yeah, you can do all of that, right? And it's got to go in, but you have to retain it and be able to spit it out, right? And spit out your own interpretation. So yes, get passionate about something. Like, even if you just, like, smoke marijuana on your couch, man, study marijuana. There's a bunch of strains. There's a bunch of species of marijuana, I believe, right? And it's got a vast history. So if you work at a dispensary, you can become valuable by, researching it. If you like smoking pot, you're going to be passionate about it in some capacity. You're going to have some sort of love there. Like, people are not in a vegetative state with passion, right? Like, every word I say, I'm not in a vegetative state. Like, the first time I said vegetative, I did not aspirate any of my T's. So I am very conscious about that now. And then the second time and third time, I aspirated my T's very heavily. In Spanish, they don't aspirate their vowels, very heavily. So they don't say tu, it's tu, right? Those little differences, right? So yes, be passionate, have love, take care of yourself. Is that all I want to talk about for this video? 54 fucking minutes. Oh my god. Let me give you guys some recommendations if you want to like get into shit, right? So I have the Chicago Manual of Style. If you want to get into publication, use Chicago Style. It's way better than like MLA. MLA's gay. Literature, a portable anthology, assigned to me in a classroom. If you want to get into like functions of grammar and shit, and you want to see a living history of the English language, read Variations of the Bible. Also good for textual analysis. Read the Bible. It is a very important book. If you want to get into like rhythmic, if you want to get into like rhythm and meter and shit, read the Quran. It's a very good cultural asset at the moment to have a good understanding of the Quran. I don't have a phenomenal understanding of the Quran, but I know the surahs, I know the history, I know a lot of the stories, and I know the good name of the Prophet Muhammad and Allah, and those things are important to me not because I'm a Muslim, but because there is that cultural bridge I can draw. But yeah, if you want, dactylic meter, shit like that, the Iliad and the Odyssey, I think those are dactylic meter. It's ancient Greek, I would assume so, but I have an English translation. I'll get a Greek copy sometime. But yes, get good at something, right? A lot of people play video games now. My brother's really good at video games. I'm not so much. I'm good at Hearts of Iron 4, but yeah, I have like, do I have like 500 hours yet? I think so. I'm gonna play that soon. But yeah. I mean, no matter what you want to be good at, you can do it, right? Find books online, find books in person, and just hammer away at something, man. Become valuable in your knowledge, which you can undoubtedly build, right? I can do a lot of shit with my books alone because the information is there, but iterate to yourself, um, you know, become a catch-all be-all. And yeah, I think I've preached passion before on this um, channel, but yeah, it just means a lot to me in the future, and I grow really concerned for people my age, who are uninspired and really daunted by the world around you. It's like you'll be all right. Just keep at it. You know, do what you want to do, and if you can't do that, make a case for yourself. Right? You can back yourself. You are your strongest you are your strongest advocate if you have the panache for it. Why do I have a primary source in sculpture in America? I don't know. My library's weird. I need to reorganize it. I have a book in Chinese and Japanese, which I don't really read well either, but I'll do that eventually. I have Don Quixote de la Mancha, Amigo de Cervantes. Oh yeah, I'll do that video in Italian. I'm gonna do a video in Spanish soon, and I'll probably do one in French, probably Portuguese in the future too. So German probably not for a while, but yeah, it's for reasons I'll talk about in the future. Thank you for listening. Good night and take care.